Okay, so basically the call flow today is this will be roughly 75 minutes. The I'll begin with a portion of just reviewing some of the theoretical concepts that Teacher Wei talks about, and also I've been enrolled in his courses, practicing, studying, going through chi purification after chi purification for almost 5 years now. So I'm going to be drawing from multiple years of content to kind of string things together. Okay. So I'll go through some slides of concepts, and then the real nuts and bolts, the real area of transformation is direct experience. So I'm going to guide all of us in a practice that there will be some images that we work with. And I do want to just say at the outset that if any of the stuff that we're working with, because this is real life, okay? This is real life stuff. If any of it feels triggering to you in a way that is beyond what is called a comfortably challenged zone, okay? In medicine, we call it the incremental zone. So we want it to feel a little bit challenging because that's where the energy will transform. That's where there's energy, right? If we're too comfortable, not a lot of stuff is moving, not a lot of stuff is turning from stuck energy into vitality. But we also want it not to be too overly challenging to where it feels like we are stuck or in a state of shock for a little while, okay? So this is going to be your practice, whether you're tuning in now or whether you're tuning in a recording, is you get to choose. You're the master. If at any time you need to just close your eyes or even mute the thing or actually exit a little bit, it's fine, right? But in Mingjue practice, it is not about sort of avoiding and then just turning the other way. It's really about going immediately into a practice so we can transform the stuff that's coming up, okay? And just a note is that whatever is coming up is actually in Mingjue practice is seen as a beneficial, as a healing process, because we're bringing stuff up from the subconscious that's been stuck there for a really long time and it's coming up, okay? And when it comes up to the surface, we can transform it much more readily, okay? Before we start also, I wanted to put in the chat 2 blogs that are related to today's content. Let's see, how do I do this? So they're both on the Tao Hearts website, and they both have to do with relationships, okay, which is really the topic of today. And relationships is very, very broad, as you'll see as we go into the topic for today. But the inspiration originally, when I was sitting with what is the theme for today? Hold on, let me screen share. Let me close this. Okay, so for the topic for today about relationships really came up because Teacher Wei spent a lot of this particular month focusing on the exploration of confessing and forgiving. And he gave a couple of stories about sages that had, true transformative experiences in healing and awakening when they had this, this Mingjue level of confession. And so one of those blogs is related to that. Okay, so I encourage you to dive into that and really work with it in your daily life. But as the the weeks kind of went on, And again, this is daily life, right? The unfolding of world events, not that they weren't intense already, but they just sort of got really, really intense. So a lot of stuff came up for me personally, a lot of stuff came up in the community, a lot of stuff came up, in our in not just in the world consciousness community, but in each of our local communities as well. So there's a lot happening on the global stage, and I like to call this Mingjue activism, right? This is one of the things I want to explore today, is how we can sometimes mistake Mingjue practice, the emptying, the peace, for being passive and not being engaged. And this is really, I put Yoda up there because I really see it as a Jedi training. And one of the things about the process of training is that we recognize that there is a period in which we would do much better to be in deep training rather than necessarily so much on the world stage. Okay. And again, we'll go into that through these slides. So the Mingjue perspective would be to, again, the world stage conflicts are another level of relationships. So we have our relationships in our homes, we have our relationships in our communities that that challenge us, that nourish us, that shape us. And then we have these relationships to what's happening on the world stage as well. So again, this is going to be your practice, whatever is most relevant for you, whatever is most alive for you, whatever is most challenging for you. I invite you to play with that scale, okay? But whatever the relationship is that you're going to work on today, is really asking, how can we allow these relationships to train us, to teach us, to strengthen us, to soften us, open us, humble us, heal us, awaken us, and transform us, right? The transformation is just it's the definition of evolution. So can we evolve, co-evolve in a way that is harmonizing and that causes less harm, less suffering? Back in 2021, I believe, Teacher Wei was talking about challenges. And he was talking specifically at the time about health challenges, that they reveal to us two things, but it really applies to any challenge, including relationships, events, any experiences. They reveal to us the laws of life and the quality of our inner states. So the laws of life, as much as we would like to change them, they are immutable. Okay, so we would do well when we learn about the laws of life, either conceptually or through direct experience. When we align, when we live according to those laws, then we come into harmony ourselves. The second one, the quality of our inner states, is what we're going to be largely focused on today, because that is highly, highly changeable, as most of us know, right? Minute to minute, our inner states can change, okay? So right now I wanted to do a quick community check-in. And I invite you to, again, you can keep your eyes open if you want, but really going within, you might close your eyes, and I invite you to observe your inner state right now. And 2 words or 3 that capture your inner state. Going below the story, right? So if the mind is active and being like, oh, well, I feel this because of that, and oh my gosh, that person made me feel this, and then what's happening in that part of the world is making me feel this. Go below the story, and this is the first part of Mingjue activism training, going below the story. So 2 or 3 words. I'm going to stop the share and invite you, again, as you are comfortable, but to type those 2 or 3 words into the chat. We have too many to right now to kind of do an oral share. But again, just checking within. Great. And for the rest of us, while we are also connecting to our inner states, also just observing what's emerging in the field. I'll just read some of them aloud. Jangly and tight, curious, hopeful, behind, awe, centered, grace, peace, anxious, fearful, angry, overstimulated, shaky, peaceful, expanded in awe, wonder, tired, peace, stressed, nervous, curious, shocked, unstable, grateful, calm, weary, stimulated, uncertain, beautiful, fragile. Yeah, and continue to enter those into the chat. And yeah, I just invite all of us to take a moment to observe that. Right, often when we go below the story, like we might see something in there too. Our minds might be like, I wonder what they're uncertain about. I wonder what's happened that they're feeling delicate. I wonder what's happened that they're feeling grateful. But quieting that, the questions, quieting the urge to go into story, it really allows us to begin to receive all of those states as gifts, right? It's each of us, each Mingjue, each consciousness embodied, showing up today and examining ourselves, observing ourselves, and sharing in honesty. So at this level, there's no good or bad, there's no harmonizing or unharmonizing. It's all there in the field, and we can observe it without judgment. Okay, so that is the beginning of Mingjue training, right? Now I invite you to, and if words are still coming up, I invite you to continue to share those. And now I'm going to invite you to go one level deeper. And this is where Mingjue can go into pure simplicity, okay? Is connecting with your inner state. And again, it often helps to close your eyes. And reducing it down to 2 things, because we are, in essence, we are energy bodies. We are consciousness bodies expressing as energy in this dimension of reality. So, are you feeling contracted or open, flowing? Yeah, resistance or openness? Sometimes we feel a mixture, sometimes we feel in the middle. Going below the story. You might feel resistance in certain areas of the body and openness in others. So just as you continue to take a few more breaths into lower dantian, into the center of your abdomen, just observing. Okay. So let me try to reshare my slides. I think there were some issues with it. Let me see. Okay, let me try again. Can you guys give me a thumbs up if you can see that? Okay, great. Okay, so going back to last year, any of the phrases in these slides that have quotes are direct quotes from Teacher Wei from one of his sessions, okay? If you have tried to make a harmonious relationship and have failed, this is not a problem. This is just a test for yourself. Your abilities and wisdom are not yet enough. So you need to practice the stability of your Mingjue love. You need to have more wisdom to find different ways to communicate and manage relationships with others. You need to understand that making good relationships is your own work. It is not about others. Others have their own problems. You can only change yourself. If you have blockages, fear, and worry, then creating harmony isn't possible. These negative emotions will be projected onto others, and others will project onto you in a similar way. This negative information will work together to create more conflicts. In any relationship, at least one person needs to wake up beyond the negative emotions. This person is you. Okay. And so this teaching really stuck with me because this is what we are signing up for when we are Mingjue practitioners, Mingjue students. Okay, so it's taking the responsibility to transform ourselves, recognizing that A plus B equals C. Relationships are very easy, right? You have two people or one person and an event or an experience, and then it creates C. If C is not harmonized or harmonious, then we know what's happening between A and B, okay? But if we change ourselves, if we change A, B can stay exactly the same, but C is no longer C. Okay, so the saving grace of this is that we don't have to change our families, we don't have to change our partners, we don't have to change the world, but we change, and the outcome, the product, the combination is different. Okay. So this is, let me just reduce this so we can see it. This is taken from also the first year of teaching 2020, and it's also a chart that is the Mingjue in the Mingjue Awakening book. Okay, so it is a beautiful way to encapsulate Mingjue relationships, and Teacher Wei had called that Mingjue in the middle. Okay, so very simple. Basically, we've got Mingjue, pure consciousness, and then the world in which we live, okay, around this wheel. So these color codings are are my rendering. They're my way to play with this. And you'll actually see I'm going to be playing with this chart a lot, okay, to explore concepts. And so I put in purple the areas that are largely internal work, right? So we're working to heal ourselves or purify areas that are not, that are stuck or suppressed, connecting with our chi body, the chi universe within, healing, working on energy. And then the green is external, right? Our families, communities, society, and the world at large. And Mingjue being blue is within the purple, it's within the blue and within the green. Okay. So this is me playing with that chart again. Okay. So on the personal level, again, we're in the center of our worlds. And in the personal, these are things that can happen fully within. This is very invisible, but it is an equally active, if not more active world and environment that we're navigating is, terrains that are completely uncharted compared to the external world. All right. So we have our emotions, beliefs, health, trauma, work, dreams, our identities, values, lineage. These are just some of what we are navigating in our inner worlds. And then there's the family, right? Our parents, our siblings, ancestors, friends, children, in-laws, cousins, partners. We can throw pets in there. This is, again, just increasing circles of interaction and relationships. At the local level, right? We're going to be working with our doctors, our healthcare practitioners, teachers, mentors, sitters, coaches, priests, strangers, neighbors, therapists, you name it. Okay. At the national global level, which has really been in a lot of people's consciousnesses lately, right? We've got the politics, justice or injustice, religion, education, tech, climate, healthcare, sports, economy. Again, these are just very general sectors that we are having relationships with, whether we're aware of it or not. And one of the things that Teacher Wei often says is, we lose self, right? So oftentimes we are losing ourself, we're losing connection with our pure consciousness, our inner observer that's observing everything. And so the way conceptually that I really saw that was, let me just go back. What I thought was powerful about this diagram that I hadn't appreciated when I first saw it was that there's space, right? So you have Mingjue in the middle, and then there's space between each of these parameters, including the ones that are inside us. And so what happens, he was talking in this particular month's module about our attachments. And attachments and entanglements are very, very closely related. So he said, when we have all these attachments to people, to our affections, to controlling our environment, to how we believe that things ought to be, right, in terms of peace or justice or love, it feels more like this. All right. That distance collapses and we become hidden. And so what Teacher Wei said was that these will cover up our Mingjue. So in this state, my question is always like, okay, well, who am I? I mean, where am I? Can I even find myself? Because I don't even know who I am. I cannot separate myself from all of these different relationships that I have. Another way to experience this in living reality, right? And again, this is kind of looking at the circle, right? That diagram is that we go out, right, onto, maybe it's our symptoms, maybe it's our beliefs, maybe it's outside of us, it's our partner, it's world events, that we begin feeling like we're this ship. We're just spiraling, and we have no sense of agency over where we're going. So Mingjue in the middle, again, these are all my renderings of it, is that and this is Teacher Wei, the more Mingjue awakens, it becomes independent from everything, even though it is merged with everything. So Mingjue begins to build autonomy and the distance between our consciousness and everything around us, including the things within our bodies. There's a little bit of distance. Okay, so we might experience that as, oh, time actually feels a little bit more expansive throughout my day. Or, oh, I feel like I have a little bit more reaction time when something happens or someone says something or a symptom comes up, that I can, check myself and then respond from a place that is more conscious rather than an unconscious reflex. So at this point, right, then the distance is even greater, and Mingjue becomes a fully autonomous observer. One way I like to phrase it is Mingjue is in the world, but not of the world. Mingjue is in the body, but not of it. Okay, so we are not detached from it. We have not dissociated from our bodies because of discomfort. We have not disengaged from the world because it's uncomfortable. We're fully in it. In fact, we're right in the middle. Now, this is the most important part, is that the most important relationship is Mingjue to itself, okay? Is you to your consciousness. So this is a really important part, is that there is a role for aloneness, for solitude. We cannot know ourselves without having periods of aloneness. And this gives us time to observe deep within, to know our inner state, and to know our true essence. Okay, now, a lot of us do not like this feeling. It can feel isolating in our dominant framework, especially in medicine and healing. Loneliness, the epidemic, this is a very different kind of aloneness. This is, again, the aloneness that we need to begin to develop and experience our own autonomy. So our capacity to accept others in relationships and to accept what is happening in the world is directly linked to our capacity to accept the challenging parts of ourselves, right? That's not new to most of us. But can you accept your whole self? Can you transform your attachments? Can you grant yourself time and space to ripen? Okay, so that's really important. A lot of times when things are very urgent, whether it's within our own bodies or in family events or on world events, we can feel like, oh my God, I need to do something right now. I need to do something right now. And so I'm going to go a little bit into why it's really important for us to have space and time to ripen ourselves. All right, so with Mingjue in the middle, we always return to that question of who. Who is observing these relationships? Who is choosing actually to relate to these people, right? We made these decisions, whether wherever or not, to co-create some kind of life together, to learn something from each other and with each other, for each other. And the Mingjue way is that we recognize that each person, right, in our lives, whether we know them or we don't, these are strangers, maybe they're on the other side of the world, that we are that they are Mingjue bodies as well. And so our Mingjue and their Mingjue, we're doing something together. And because the Mingjue practice is largely focused on inner transformation, we ask the question of what is it that they are showing to us? What are they reflecting to us? And where can I harmonize my own consciousness and energy. Right, so a centered and stable Mingjue here in the middle is a clear observer. Clear is a quality of the energy of and the state of consciousness, right? It's like it's super, super lucid, like a clear mirror or a still lake. But in daily life, really what it means is we are free of biases. We're free of judgments. We are free of seeing reality as through our filters of our of all the different frameworks we've been growing up with, that we've been taught. We see things much more for who and what they are. And then this is a really big game changer, the collective field, right? So Mingjue is in the middle, but the more we go into our true essence, we realize that Mingjue is just one big universal field that is everywhere. So everything is reflected within what we call this Mingjue entirety. Okay. So again, stripping away all those relationships and everything that we tend to lose ourselves on is this role of aloneness. We are not just waking up to our own individual Mingjue, but as we deepen into the practice, we begin to experience that the deeper we go within, the more we are connected to the entirety, to the oneness state of all of us being one large universal organism that is awakening to itself. Okay. In lived experience, what we're doing is we're tuning to the collective heart. We're listening, not with our ears and not with our thinking minds. We're listening with an expanded, open consciousness. And we are getting to know our expanded essence. So beyond our individual Mingjue bodies that are moving around in the world, we are also getting very intimately acquainted with a much more expanded sense of ourselves. So just holding the questions of what happens to our conflicts when we truly experience everything and everyone as one. And what happens to our conflicts when our primary practice is always returning to harmonizing our own inner states. These characters over here, right? Mingjue, clear observer or clear observation. And this is a key point here. When we are merged with the oneness, our choices become the choices of the universe. So we go beyond what we individually think might be the right or fair or honest, best path. We go beyond what we individually think is harmonizing. We can judge that too. But the choices that we make, it comes from this universal field. It's like information that comes through our individual frameworks, and then that's what we ended up expressing. Okay, it's a much, much larger, much more harmonizing expression of peace and love and joy than we individually experience at the emotional level. So I do call this an invisible activism, okay? To really come into our empty selves, our true essence as empty but not empty. So empty, that means we are pure energy, okay? But we are empty. So pure potential. And it's activism because this is hard to do. This is not easy to sit with ourselves. Oh, we can practice too, right? We have methods, thank God. You know, we have dynamic methods that we can add to the mix to experience our true selves. But we have to come into this empty state. And Teacher Wei talks about 4 different Mingjue-centered states of being. This is the fundamental one, is empty but not empty, okay? And I changed the blue to yellow because at another level of this Mingjue centered state is that we also recognize our true essence as light energy. Okay, so we go empty, pure potential, or close to pure potential, and then actually we begin to radiate energy. And we do that all the time anyways. So if you haven't seen the science talk, there's a science talk where I basically talk about the energy fields of our bodies. So the more we practice Mingjue, the more we open up these fields to flow, the more we literally, not conceptually, we literally radiate energy. Okay. And so again, I am playing around with Teacher Wei's diagram here. So unconditional love and acceptance in the Mingjue sense is not an emotional, like, I love you no matter what you do kind of thing. And I love everything that you do. I mean, those things are not true, and they're also not sustainable. Okay, we are finite. We have finite energy. And so Mingjue unconditional love is that we recognize our true essence as energy, and that the more we clarify our blockages, the more we harmonize our inner states, we radiate out. We affect everyone and everything around us. And if we really understand the nature of energy, we realize that our energy state here, wherever it is that you're situated, affects the entire field. Okay, you're going to be if you're on the other side of the world, you're affecting my state here, my field here, when you harmonize your own. And so it is a profound practice of gratitude, of mutual trust, of unconditional love. But it's not something that I'm not trying to radiate something out to you, because again, that is at the reference framework level, and that's a way that we get burned out. I am just doing my own inner work and connecting to infinite, the universal field, and then it comes through. It comes through. Okay, it's a natural side effect. And so we become like suns. We are individual suns. And like the sun, it shines on everyone, no matter what their beliefs, what their political stance, what their family dynamics are, whether partners are together or not. It doesn't matter. We just radiate. So that is unconditional love. Now, as people relating to other people, we have discernment, right? We still decide how it is we're going to respond in that particular situation, but we are still radiating unconditional love. Okay, there are no attachments to specific outcomes. So seeing through, I wanted to also note that seeing through, Mingjue observation is a state, and it is a function of Mingjue. Mingjue is also a perspective, right? So as we're living life, we see through. And I mentioned earlier, we see through the entanglements, okay? We understand, oh, that person is a Mingjue body, and I'm a Mingjue body, and we're doing something together. We're learning something together. We're growing up together. And then always going back to the question is, what are my relationships revealing to me about my inner state? Okay. So oftentimes we think about creating and evolving with people that inspire us, with muses, and happy, blissful, and deeply inspiring. And the role of people who create conflict for us, people who we might consider opponents or enemies, or, oh, that thorn in my side. Well, guess what? They are part of the dance of co-creation. And I would venture to guess, and I'm going to just put it out there, is that most of us have come into this practice. I certainly have myself, because of immense challenges. It's not necessarily because of the inspiration. Now it is, years, a decade into this practice. It is. But the initial foot in the door, the reason I'm here is because of challenges. Okay. So it is the role of other people creating conflict for us. It is the role of suffering, if we want to call that a role, but it's what they allow us to do if we can open ourselves to it. Okay, we can see through that there is a role for all of this. So in 2021, this is a point also I wanted to hit home, and it really struck me when I first heard it, and it stayed with me. Teacher Wei says, if we do not first connect to Mingjue entirety and universal love, it becomes an ego state. I want to create harmony, right? So we can insert anything we want. I want to create health, justice, peace, okay? Underneath, anger and fixation have already taken hold. And then the righteous ego begins to fight with the angry ego within. Okay, that happens within, it also happens on the outside. So this is what he was talking about earlier, right? About conflict, creating conflict. That's all we're doing is just different versions, maybe a more righteous kind of conflict. But the inner state, again, if we understand the essence of energy, we are energy bodies, our energy fields are affecting everything, okay? I just wanted to remind you that you are the master and you can decide how much to practice, how strongly to practice, how lightly to practice. And the practice I thought we would do is the one that Teacher Wei and the community we've been practicing for the past few months is open and close in the 4 centers, but really focusing on open and close. You can choose. Again, it depends on where you're feeling drawn and also maybe where you're feeling contracted, okay? But lower dantian and Hunyuan Palace at the level of the pancreas, right, between the navel and the lower part of the ribs, or middle dantian, okay? And the reason I'm suggesting these areas as opposed to upper dantian in the head is that when we're interacting in daily life, particularly when we're feeling challenged, we tend to leave the body, right? So we really need to embody ourselves, not only to be much more in flow in Wu Wei, doing without doing, being much more in flow in our daily lives, but that's also how we heal ourselves, right? When we leave, there's no one home, okay? And then that's when things happen. So we want to inhabit ourselves. Okay, so I'm going to go through a few slides, and I do invite you to just imagine that you're immersed in that, right? Like it's not just something that you're looking at on the screen, but just, oh, hey, you know what? I'm entering this scene, and then you can choose how, again, that distance that's in the Mingjue wheel. You can choose how much you want to go, how deeply you want to go into that scene, or if you want to stay a little bit further out from the scene. Okay, so I'm going to just guide us very briefly in setting a field. And it's brief because this is Mingjue in daily life. This is pure consciousness in daily life. And oftentimes we don't even have a chance to set the field, right, to connect to ourselves. But then in your longer practices, whether you practice alone or with a group, that is the time to deeply solidify the experience of coming back to yourself. Okay? So if you're not already, just taking the flow posture, the Mingjue posture, okay, crown of the head lifted up towards the sky, feet planted on the floor, just feeling all the points of contact, connecting deep to the center of the earth below. Just feeling your spine gently straighten, right? Feeling the flow Rotating your shoulders back a few times as you take some deep breaths. And just relax. Taking some deep breaths into lower dantian. And just experiencing yourself as consciousness breathing. Your consciousness is fully inhabiting your body from head all the way down to the toes, right? Like a hand and glove. Just a beautiful, beautiful fit. And you are consciousness breathing. So keeping your consciousness centered in lower dantian, just bringing a very light awareness. It's like the peripheral awareness of your mind's eye. That all of us are Mingjue light bodies breathing in unison. Right, we're breathing the same qi atmosphere. It connects us in an intimate way. It connects us in a cosmic way. Breathing the same atmosphere as Teacher Wei, Dr. Pong, all the other teachers, healers, students, all of us like Jedis in training. So primary awareness is always within. But you're also aware that you're connected and you're supported by a field that can help harmonize you. As long as you remember to breathe in and out. And so allowing your qi hands to float up. Again, observing your inner state and feeling where you might be drawn to. The hands holding a qi ball in front of lower dantian or Hunyuan Palace or middle dantian. And you might just experiment a little bit with each of those centers and feel maybe it's an area that's a little contracted and the open and close can help open that. Maybe it's an area that feels really strong that can help center your Mingjue as you connect to it as we go through the images. And so even with the open and close, this very simple movement, it's also an awareness that you're harmonizing the collective field. Again, that's not your primary focus. That's not your goal. It's an easy way to lose ourselves. But having a light awareness is a way that we can also just relax the mind if we feel like we're doing nothing. All this stuff is happening, we're doing nothing, we're just trying to harmonize ourselves, we're trying to find ourselves. Well, you're doing something profound. Okay, and so one thing before I start the images, some of them are going to be neutral, some of them might even make you feel harmonized. Other ones are going to be challenging. And when we've been practicing open and close with Teacher Wei and generally in this community, right, it's very light, effortless, soft. But when we are living in daily life and we have challenges or we're being triggered, it can often be helpful. It's very similar to the N sound, right? When we practice very quietly or sometimes silently. But if we're getting triggered and we're losing ourselves and our minds are going, a million miles a minute, we say the sound loudly and fast. We can do the same with movements. Okay, if we find ourselves losing ourselves or feeling contracted, you can do practice. Again, this is your practice. Doing larger open and closed movements, doing them faster, so that you can harmonize your inner state. You use the practice. Mingjue is using this practice to harmonize its inner state. Okay? All right. So if this is where you want to stay, I invite you to stay here. You can stay with your eyes closed. And this is your practice, supporting the field, contributing to it, and yet primarily harmonizing yourself. Okay, so for those of you who have your eyes open, you can just imagine maybe you're sitting at the kitchen table with this little guy. Just observing whatever comes up. If stories start to come, I invite you to do the practice we did at the beginning, right? Go below the story. Are you feeling contracted? Or are you feeling open? And where are the areas that you feel like you can open more with your breath, with the open and close practice? Okay, so now you're in your friend's living room. They're going through some challenges. Staying centered in yourself, using the image of the Mingjue wheel to create some autonomy, if that's useful. Harmonizing your inner state and allowing your inner light to radiate. And we're gently venturing into our communities, into larger groups, sitting in a classroom, staying fully centered, and actively practicing harmonizing your inner state. in the corridor of a hospital. Oh, you've just run into one of your favorite people. And sometimes we can lose ourselves when we get excited. Can we practice feeling joy, love, gratitude, but in a centered state where the excitement, all this energy flows through us instead of us losing ourselves to it? You stay centered in your Mingjue autonomy, observing clearly. When we observe clearly, we also, when we relax the judgments, and we relax what we think we know, we relax the identities that we've assigned to ourselves and other people, it also opens up wonder, opens up curiosity, opens up awe. Those are all states that help us actually reinforce staying in Mingjue state. Okay. So this is your practice. You might visualize this on your television set. Depending on where your Mingjue state and observation are, you might insert yourself into the scene. This is all training. First and foremost, observing your inner state. Again, practicing faster movements, bigger movements, stronger movements when necessary. Just feeling what that feels like. To say, oh my God, I have the agency to harmonize myself. No matter where I am, no matter who I'm relating to. All right, so lastly, I invite you to imagine you're sitting face to face with someone in your life. And depending on what's been coming up for you, what's alive for you, what's most intense for you, or maybe that's not where you want to go. But if that's where you want to go, if you want to work with something that's emerged in the last week or today, that can be this person. It might be someone that you share a bed with every night. It might be someone that you don't know. Someone you read about in the news, someone whose story you heard about from a friend. Just bringing that person face to face. If you want a gentler practice, you can choose someone in your life that is less perhaps less entangled with your inner state. And continuing open and close. You can choose, right, how the distance between you and this person. In Mingjue training, when you create some space between you and that person, it's not a distancing. It's not an avoidance. It's a way in which we can connect to our autonomy. We can find ourselves. And when we do, we become more present. We see them at their essence. Can your Mingjue observe their Mingjue? Can your heart radiate light energy with theirs? Can you see through to the role that this person has in your life? Largely serving as a mirror to you so you can see yourself more clearly. So you can awaken to your true essence, your true luminosity. So you can heal, connect to your wholeness. So at this level of practice, Mingjue gratitude is the natural expression. It's not something that we do. It's not something that, oh, I need to thank that person. Gratitude is natural, as is compassion for self and the other. Because we recognize that even strangers, even people who are seemingly creating so much chaos in our lives, they are showing up so that we can awaken to ourselves. And so before we close this practice portion, continuing to open and close, maybe slow it down if you are doing it faster and stronger. And just beholding all of us gathering together, practicing together. Accepting the brave task of observing our inner states with honesty, without judgment. It's not easy. Right, so just placing your palms over Duchi, the navel. And just doing another check-in. Observing your inner state. You can see what 2 or 3 words arise. And then also invite you to go below that, just to observe your state of openness, areas that are still contracted, which are just areas that need more unconditional, non-judgmental Mingjue observation. That's all it needs. Just needs a little sunshine. And just recognizing that when you come to this state, you yourself are the greatest mirror, the greatest reflector to yourself. Okay, so just wrapping things up, right? So when Mingjue doesn't lose itself on external people or triggers, we can see and respond with clarity, wisdom, and compassion. We become more effective in the world, not idle, not withdrawn. Right? The individual Mingjue heart merges with the universal heart. So the clarity, wisdom, and compassion that you have, they become more universal than personal. Okay, and this is an experience that you will have to experience. And if you've experienced it, you know it, it qualitatively feels different. Sometimes you may not even recognize who you are because the choices you make, the experience of feeling is very different than how you've always known. The only way to bring true peace to our relationships and to the world is to be peace. Mingjue peace is none other than the state of the observer, of you as pure consciousness knowing itself. When we come back to ourselves, when we know who we are, when we know who we are individually and as a universal consciousness, that is unshakable peace. We bring that to the world, we bring that to whatever we do, whoever we meet, and it is transforming even if we sit here and do nothing. Okay. This is taken from Mingjue Awakening from the 2020-2021 course. Pain and suffering come to everyone at different times. They reveal to us the laws of life and consciousness, which is where we began. Okay, so this is just a reminder of those who are enrolled in the current course. But again, the first two foundational areas are the emptiness, xu, and building the collective field. Okay, all of these other practices, and I don't think Teacher Wei, at least this year, has gone through all of them yet, but they're all different versions, right? Open and close is another way of breathing, right? Of emptying and then coming into the fullness, right? And that's the emptying and then coming into the full light that we are. All of these are different versions of enhancing flow and the breath. Okay, so we have a lot of different tools. And sometimes we feel like it's very overwhelming and that we might not be able to do it. But this is also Teacher Wei. Each of you is a master with great wisdom and abilities. Okay, so we must remember that. We must encourage each other with that, because these are very, very dynamic and intense times. All right, so we are actually at 15 after. So this is when I said that we would end. I'd love to open up, just for those of you who can stay, maybe 5 minutes, 10 minutes, to share any reflections if you would like. One thing, sharing reflections is always can be very supportive, right? It can be helpful. It helps us, the sharer, to kind of bring form into an experience that feels a little bit subtle. And it can help, of course, each of us. We learn together. We learn through each other's experiences as well. Our journeys are individual, but we can walk them together. And at the same time, too, again, because of this role of aloneness and the role of stillness and silence, oftentimes to nurture that seed, we want to kind of, the seeds, the initial seeds go into these tiny little containers under a warm lamp. We don't just immediately put it out into the world. So, but if anything is moving and you want to share, I would love for you to have the space to do so. And for those of you who are also attuned to the field, or just observing the transformation of the field, it's a very short amount of time. And so just recognizing that change can happen very quickly when we're working at the consciousness and the energy levels. That is the grace. All right, so with that, I bid you onwards. Have a beautiful day, night, a beautiful rest of your life. And we continue our journey together. Thank you for showing up and for looking within and for doing your work in the world. Thank you. Hala.
Thank you. Hala.
Malito.
Yes, that's gonna happen.